Welcome back. Today we're going over solving proportions, which for a lot of students is a hardship. So if you're watching this video, I want you to pay close attention because we're going to go through several strategies for how to solve proportions. Okay, so we're going to start off by reading like we always do, and I want us to follow along so we can see what we're reading and ask ourselves questions if we are confused with what the words are. So, if a relationship is also known to be proportional, ratios from the situation are equal. All that's saying is we can set two fractions or ratios equal to each other like I just circled. An equation stating that two ratios are equal is called a proportion. We're going to see some examples of a proportion here. So you'll notice we have 5/7 is equal to 50/70. Now, if you're wondering why these are equal, we'll take a look. 5 times what is 50? Good, 10. 7 times what is 70? 10. Great, so the multiplicative identity here tells us that if we're multiplying by 10 over 10, we're just multiplying by a giant 1. So these are a proportion. Same thing here, but we can add in specific units. 6 miles every 2 hours is equal to going 9 miles every 3 hours. How are those the same? Well, again, we look. How did we get from 6 to 9? We multiplied by how much? We multiplied by 2. How did we get from 2 hours to 3 hours? Did we multiply by 2? No. So the strategy that we used before isn't going to work. And we're going to look into different strategies we can use when we're given proportional relationships that are equal. So one way is to use a giant one, which I did in the first problem. And the way we solve that proportion is by ultimately finding an equivalent ratio. If we notice here in this example, we have some value over 16 equals 9 over 2. Okay, so we look and we say, okay, we know 2 has to end up being 16. What could we multiply 2 by to get 16? Well, we're going to multiply by 8. Whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. So we're going to use our big multiplicative identity, or our giant 1, to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 8. 9 times 8 is 72. 2 times 8 is 16. So we know that our x value is going to equal 72. That strategy is what we call the giant 1, or the multiplicative identity. Okay, we also have another strategy called undoing division. Okay, another way to do that is just to look at the problem specifically and we say, okay, we have the same thing. X divided by 16 equals 9 divided by 2. I'm going to undo some division by using the inverse operation of division, which is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 16. Now multiplying both sides by 16, we see here that 16 can always be 16 over 1, and now we just have a multiplication problem. But we can do some canceling out. 16 divided by 16 is 1, so we're left with x equals 9 over 2 times 16 over 1. If you're confused as to how this piece here canceled out, let me just show you really quickly over here to the side. If we have 16 over 1 times x over 16, and we were to multiply this through, we would get 16x over 1 times 16, which is 16. We know here 16, this is 16 times x over 16 times 1. We know that 16 over 16 is 1, so that cancels out and we get just x left over. Okay, let me just erase this piece. Okay, so we were left with x equals 9/2 times 16 over 1. Now, we are just going to multiply this through, and you'll notice we get 9 times 16, which is 144, 2 times 1, which is 2. This can be reduced, and you'll notice we get the exact same answer. How many times does 2 go into 144? Well, 2 goes into 1 0 times. 2 goes into 14 7 times with 0 left over. We bring it down, we get a 72. Okay, so again, same answer, different strategy. Okay, cross multiplication. Now, all cross multiplication is ultimately undoing division, but some kids like to use cross multiplication because it's what they've learned prior. Really, it's kind of tricky because cross multiplication should only be used when there's an equal sign. Okay, always, always, always when there is an equal sign. There should never, ever, you should never use cross multiplication if there's not an equal sign. Okay, so we look here and we say, okay, we're going to do some cross multiplication. All that is we take our same exact ratios or fractions that are proportionate to each other because there is an equal sign. Okay, and we are just going to cross multiply. So we're going to multiply across, big X. X times 2 is 2x. 16 times 9 is 144. Now we're left with a one-step equation. Ultimately, we're trying to find x, so we divide through by the coefficient in front of x, which is 2. We just did the division problem before. We know that 144 divided by 2 is 72. We get the exact same answer. So, like this video if you understood, comment if you didn't, and I will see you next time. Have a nice day.